collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, in a damning report by American news network CBS, Cyprus is in the middle of an international game of hide and seek, and they add it became as famous for its opaque banking as for its clear water. We discuss the issues particularly related to the golden passports, Russian oligarchs, and whether or not we are doing as much as we should in Cyprus when it comes to enforcing sanctions.
I think by declining to name to whom of these oligarchs we gave passports and what we are doing to get them back and to seize their property and to confiscate their property, we are not going to clean the name of Cyprus. That's the problem.
And on a happier note, great news for hikers in Cyprus, as 2 shelters are opened in the Paphos forests so that people can go on longer hikes and stay overnight.
An old and ancient trail from Paphos until Livali, and this is a trail that was used almost 900 years ago. And the route through that is totally exceptional. It's like on the mountaintop. You can see on one side Morpho Bay, on the other side you see Akamas Bay. And actually I've stayed there myself 2 times in the shelter, just to make sure that the service is up to scratch, just to make sure that the hike itself is really interesting. And trust me, Rosie, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever done in Cyprus.
Earlier this week, CBS in America aired their latest 60 Minutes special on seizing Russian assets, and a large portion of that programme dealt with Cyprus. Quite extraordinary accusations, but featured on that programme was our Greens MP Alexandra Atalidis, and she joins us now. Alexandra, tell me a little bit about what the thrust was of that CBS programme.
You know that after the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, a lot of countries have agreed to sanction the oligarchs that they are supporting Putin in this war. So what this program is dealing about is how the countries implement the sanctions against the oligarchs. And they came, I think, in September, and they asked me for this interview, because I am a member of parliament, but also as a citizen, I was dealing with the implementation of the sanctions.
Okay, but they have accusations about Cyprus being a very weak link because we are not doing what we should do with Russian assets here. Is that right?
The problem is that we do not have this policy of transparency that other countries of the European Union and Western countries are employing, because the other countries, when they seize assets, they publish it in the newspapers, on television. They seize billions of property worth of yachts, property, and other assets, because they are going, as I am informed, they are going to create a fund. And these assets will fund the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war ends.
Right, but we've already had so much bad publicity with regard to the golden passports, and I think they were particularly interested and also spoke to our finance minister asking about Russian oligarchs who'd been given passports for Cyprus, and he declined to name them.
Well, as far as I know, there are 12 Russian oligarchs that they are on the sanctions list of the European Union. According to the regulation of the European Union, all member countries, they are obliged to seize their assets, as was the decision of the European Council. In my opinion, the Ministry of Finance, that is overseeing the implementation of the sanctions, has a duty not only to seize the assets, but to publish when there is a seizure of any property and funds in banks. According to these media, to these journalists, there are, and also the attorney responsible for kleptocrats in the United States, there are a lot of assets in Cyprus, or they move through Cyprus. And I believe that our government should be more open and more transparent as to its actions, to implement the sanctions.
I thought it was interesting that the name Roman Abramovich came up yet again, and that's one that we've heard many times in connection with firms here in Cyprus, law firms here in Cyprus, that act as front people for shell companies. How far do you know does that go?
This was a big problem for Cyprus for years. I mean, we faced a huge scandal, and we all thought that the government is going to, let's say, take the lesson and from now on move in a completely different direction, because we have to correct the image of Cyprus. Unless we do that, we are not going to have the development we want and the good investments that our country needs to move forward. We need to clear the name of Cyprus. I think that the stand of this government is not to that direction. I think by declining to name who of these oligarchs, to whom of these oligarchs we gave passports, and what we are doing to get them back and to seize their property and to confiscate their property, we are not going to clean the name of Cyprus. That's the problem.
Now, you've worked on transparency issues before. As a member of our parliament, are you not in a position to send a written question to the relevant ministry asking for this information? Because Petridis did quote data protection, which is, I think, absolute nonsense, isn't it, in a case like this?
I am sure that I want to assure you that I sent not one but many questions, and I want to assure you that I raised the issue in many debates in the Parliament. Unfortunately, this data protection directive is used by criminals, in my opinion, to protect their names and what they are doing, and I believe that a member of the government of Cyprus should not use this data protection, because data protection directive was adopted to protect the rights of citizens against autocrats. It's not the other way around, to protect oligarchs and people who break the law. So what I am saying is that they should answer, they should publish the name, they should publish what properties and what assets are confiscated, so that everybody, media or governments of the European Union or any other involved in this, will know that Cyprus is doing what it's obliged to do on this issue.
Well, the finance minister also put some blame at the foot of Parliament, because he said that they adjusted the data protection law, and it's because of those adjustments that his hands, he says, are now tied.
I don't think that this is in agreement with what I was informed by the Commissioner for Data Protection. They can publish this.
OK, but does it mean that we ought to be looking again, or you ought to, as an MP, be looking again with your colleagues at the wording of that, so it can't be used as an excuse?
Yes, you are right. We have to examine that, and I have to tell you that I am now preparing a proposal that will hold responsible ministers and other people in Cyprus about their decisions, so that nobody hides behind any law. I mean, if you take a decision that is wrong, you have to face the consequences and means justice in this case. But what I am saying is that I don't know exactly the wording that the minister is referring to, but as far as I know, because I wrote a letter to the Commissioner about the Data Protection Directive, and her answer is clear that this is not the case. We can publish the name of these people, and we can publish our actions to confiscate their property.
So is there anything that Parliament can do about this, so that we are at least seen to be being transparent? Or is it just giving people who would rather this information didn't come out time to cover their tracks?
I think the Parliament should be more strict in its overseeing of what the executive is doing. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the rule of law in Cyprus suffers because these, in other countries, most probably the Minister of Justice or the Attorney General, they will take it up to them to bring people that they are criminals in front of justice. Unfortunately, what we have seen in the last years is a sort of cover-up, and that is what worries me, and that's why I continue to send questions. In March, I asked the relevant committee to debate about sanctions and what they are doing to implement the sanctions of the European Union. But whatever we do, we cannot force the executive to do what they have to do. I mean, there are limits, and there is a division of what the parliament can do and what the judiciary can do and what the executive can do. In my opinion, we need a government that is transparent.
Well, I think we've all said that for how many years? I'm still waiting, but anyway, I suppose we may expect a follow-up from CBS, and when this is on the global media stage, it really doesn't bode very well for our country, does it?
It doesn't, and it's a pity that it's a recurrent issue because, as you know, yesterday there was the approval of the report of PECA, and they are saying also they are criticizing the situation of rule of law in Cyprus because they ask the Attorney General to hand out the investigation about the black van, and again they got a refusal. And this refusal is the refusal to publish these inquiries, either data protection or public interest. But this cannot go on.
We should just clarify for listeners who haven't followed it that the black van refers to the spyware that was supposedly used in Cyprus, and also it seems being sold from Cyprus, although I gather that the gentleman from Israel who runs that company has now moved, has he, to Greece? But certainly we're in there somewhere, aren't we?
Yes, with different companies that he has in Cyprus again, because what they do is they use a network to spy, or they have so many companies that they move things from one company to the other in order to hide what they are doing. And I believe that there is also an issue that we have to be transparent, and also, but in the case of golden passports, I think we have to put that behind us, and the only way to put that behind us is by abiding with the laws and rules and decisions of the European Union. If we do that, we can put that behind us and move forward.
Well, let's certainly hope so. Greens MP Alexandra Atalidou, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Regular listeners to the programme will know that we've talked on many occasions to the person who is in charge of our tourism industry, which has gone through quite a terrible few years. Savas Perdios is going to join us on this week's programme to talk about a new idea for hikers in our mountains. It's all part of the Heartlands of Legends that he's been doing up in the mountains, that have included as well part of the Christmas celebration. So Savas, thanks for coming back on the programme. And let's start, I know it's over, but the Christmas mountain villages were very well received this year and got bigger and bigger, haven't they, over the last few years?
Yes, they have. And first of all, Rosie, thank you very much for having me on once again. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We did very well with the Christmas villages. They were 7 this year. They were open for almost 8 weeks, and this is something that people were surprised by at the beginning when we launched the concept. But from day one, they were very busy, and this is great for the future because it means that more communities and villages will be interested to collaborate with us, and we're excited about this year's Christmas Villages in winter 2023. I think it's going to be even more villages, even more communities. And the fact that it's 8 weeks, it gives us the chance to really push forward with our promotion of Cyprus as a winter destination as well.
Yeah, and I was interested to see that a lot of the villages didn't just have the crafts that we've seen in the past, they also provided entertainment, fire eaters and stilt walkers and all sorts.
Yes, and we also added the food this year, and the main reason that we were able to do it this year is because the pandemic has been waning. We wanted to have food and performances last winter as well, but because of Omicron, etc., it was impossible, whereas this year the Ministry of Health didn't have any restrictions on that front. So what you saw and our visitors saw this year in terms of the Christmas villages, it's what we wanted them to be like from day one. So this is going to be the way forward, and we will keep adding more and more experiences as the years go by. Another thing that was very important was, the day hikes or visits to monuments within the communities, workshops, handicrafts or gastronomy workshops, etc. And all of that came very well together. I'm very happy.
Right, now let's talk about this new idea of using some shelters for hikers in the more remote mountains. One, I think, was a schoolhouse. What was that doing up in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, basically, this idea, we have been working on it for the last 3 years. The announcement we made yesterday is that this has finally materialized, and it begins as a concept on the 1st of February. Basically, in Cyprus, since the early 1900s, there are a lot of shelters in the forest, tents of shelters in the forest that the forestry department used back in the day because they needed to hike long distances and they needed a place to stay overnight to protect themselves from animals and the weather, etc. So over the last 3 years, we have pinpointed with the forestry department where these shelters are, and we have started the process now of renovating them, bringing them up to scratch because a lot of them, they were almost decimated, and they are going to be used for accommodation overnight for long-distance hikers. The specific example of Livadi, it's an amazing example because this village hasn't had any inhabitants since 1953. People who lived in this village, they were kicked out of the village at that time. A lot of them left and they went to Morphou or other areas of Cyprus. And their houses, they were destroyed. The only 2 buildings left in this village in the forest was the school and the forestry department building. And these, throughout the years, obviously the walls almost fell, the roof fell, it was moldy, etc. So together with the forestry department, we renovated these 2 units, and now they are 2 beautiful shelters in the forest of Paphos. In Livadi, they are the only 2 buildings there. We have running water, we have a toilet, we have a shower, which you can heat up its water through firewood, and it's really, really nice. I mean, we have all of the services you could imagine there, except electricity and mattresses. There are beds, but you do need to take your own, let's say, either a blow-up bed or a sleeping bag that hikers use. You can open it up on the bed, and you're able to sleep on these beds. But obviously, we don't have a mattress because of the weather conditions, fearing that it might get moldy, etc. But there is running water. You can heat it up, and it's a great experience because you walk 15 kilometers, which is around 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on how fast you're walking. And it's an idyllic place, very nice concept. And I think this is one of the projects that is really going to help us promote the alternative side of Cyprus because it's something we didn't have. I mean, you've been in the forests a lot, on the hiking trails. A lot of them, they're a walk of maybe 1 hour, 1.5 maximum. Whereas in this instance, you're able to start from Stavros Psokas You walk 4 or 5 hours, and then you can spend the night in the forest at these shelters.
I'm surprised that you said it's got running water, because the article I read in the newspaper said it had neither electricity nor water. And one of the things I was going to ask you is, do people on long hikes carry enough to cover that sort of thing? But if it's got water, no electricity, understandably, I guess, in the middle of nowhere, do people carry their own oil lamps or whatever?
I'll go back to the article you mentioned. Basically, our announcement yesterday, it was clear that the only two facilities not available is a mattress, which people need to take with them in terms of sleeping bag, for example, and electricity. Water is available there, so this was a mistake from the article, but we've spoken to them about it, and they will correct it. This means that you have all of the water required to wash your plates, your glassware, your cutlery, and these things are available there, actually. You can also have a shower, you can heat it up with firewood, as I said. You can go to the bathroom, because that also is connected. And in terms of electricity, you can create, not electricity, I mean energy or light. You can heat the fireplace for lighting. A lot of people, long-distance hikers, they have their own lamps, which either they wear them on their forehead or they have a flashlight with them. So, yeah, fire is available there, and it's included in the price.
What about the danger of fires in a forest area?
This is not something which would be available in the summer. This concept is something that we will be running only in the winter, and obviously there is no danger in that instance of fire, and obviously we are working on it together with forestry department, so there are always going to be rangers in place for the supervision, etc.
So what do people do if they are on this trail? How do they get into the house? Have they got to book? Have they got to contact somebody to get in? How does it work?
You have to book in advance on the Heartland of Legends website. The link itself for booking will be ready soon. It's not yet ready. So you go online, you book your bed. The cost is 25 euros per bed, and that obviously includes all of these facilities. It also includes the firewood, and it's very important that you do this in advance because we are going to be checking the spot. So anybody who goes there and tries to use without having paid, they will be forced to pay when they're there anyway.
And how many people can be accommodated?
Maximum 12 at any time. There's 2 shelters there, and there are 6 beds in every shelter.
What's the reaction been from people like the Hikers Clubs and the Ramblers Association?
We arranged a farm trip for them a few months ago because we also wanted not only their feedback but also their ideas for improvement, and they were thrilled by it. I think for me one of the best things about this is that we've found an old and ancient trail from Paphos until Livadi, and this is a trail that was used almost 900 years ago, and the route through that is totally exceptional. It's like on the mountaintop. You can see on one side Morphu Bay, on the other side you see Akamas Bay, and actually I've stayed there myself 2 times in the shelter just to make sure that the service is up to scratch, just to make sure that the hike itself is really interesting, and trust me, Rosie, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever done in Cyprus.
Now, I know that on some of the nature trails up in the mountains, the forestry department has signs at various stages telling you what the flora and fauna are in the area. Do you have that yet on these trails, or will you put it?
Yes, it's in the plan. Some signs are already there, obviously directional ones, but the intention is to show the different altitudes, different names of flora and fauna, different names of locations. So this is an ongoing process and a project that we are working on very diligently together with the forestry department, because it's very important for hikers, whether they're professionals or not, to have this information, because otherwise you might get lost, etc. So this is also something that is going to be a feature of the concept.
And I suppose in an emergency, then they can also pinpoint where they are for rescue and help. Let me also ask you, just before we finish, about the treasure hunt that I think you're organising at the end of the month in this area. What's that all about?
Yeah, basically it was an idea that we came up with just to give people a chance to compete on this trail. I mean, some teams, they have to apply to the ministry, and we will drop them off at Stavros Tsogas. They need to walk down to Livadi shelters. Along the way, they will need to find some things we've hidden, maybe a QR code, etc., do a few things. And then the team that finishes first, they will then be able to get a free accommodation for one night at these shelters at a later stage. So it's something that we have done just to put a bit of fun into it and make sure that we will get the promotion we need, because obviously that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, and as I said, hiking has become very popular here in Cyprus. I mean, we weren't known really as an island where people walked very much, but that seems to have changed.
It has changed, and actually there was an article recently in Lonely Planet, a very popular travel platform. It has placed Cyprus in the top 10 countries in the world for hiking in 2023. So you're right about that. I mean, the work we've been doing together with the Forestry Department over the last few years, it seems to be paying off, and I was really happy to read that article because, it's not something that we were known about in Cyprus, and slowly we're putting ourselves on those maps. And now with the forest shelters, trust me, I think we are going to get a lot of attention on this because, in my opinion, we have some of the best forest shelters now in Europe. It's very rare that forest shelters have a toilet, running water, a fireplace that you can cook on, or stoves that you can heat the shower water on. So normally abroad, when you stay in a forest shelter, these services and these facilities, they are not available. And we're going to be one of the only countries in Europe that does have such facilities, so I'm really happy about it.
Which presumably means that you're looking at making more of them. Now, I know from my many years ago days of rallying in the Paphos forests that there are lots of abandoned villages which probably could also service this type of thing.
Absolutely, and what we've done now in Livadi village, this is the first one. These are the first two shelters. It's like a pilot as well. If this goes well and people regard it and experience it positively, of course we intend to extend it to other regions and areas. And personally, I'm very optimistic because, as I said, I've tried it myself. And the whole point was to be able to attract non-traditional hikers. So sometimes in our mind we have this stereotypical idea that a hiker is just 20 years old, they don't care about not having a shower for many days, etc. And this is not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is just show to the world, to people like you, like me, like our listeners, that irrespective of what your interests are, this is something for everybody. And I think it's really important at the end of a long hike to be able to have a shower, to be able to go to the bathroom, to be able to cook in a kitchen. So these are things that we have, and this is why I'm very confident.
So tell us where people should go online if they want. Let's first of all start with that treasure hunt, because that will introduce them, won't it, to the whole concept?
Yeah, the treasure hunt, the exact link, basically is on the Heartland of Legends website /stays in nature. And that's where you will be able to book in the future, and that's where you can apply on our website.
Stavros, congratulations. It looks like we're going to get many, many more people up in our forests, and I imagine some of those trails might also connect up, might they, with the vineyards and the wine routes?
Certainly. I mean, there's no better way than hiking to experience a destination in a slow way, and slow tourism is one of the biggest things happening now in tourism. And it's also a very sustainable form of tourism. And in Cyprus, we have a unique selling point. These trails, they linked all of the villages of Cyprus back in the day. Walking from one village to the next in Cyprus was never more than 20-25 kilometers. This means a day hike. So now we are creating this concept where you're able to come to Cyprus for 10, 14 days and actually walk from place to place and from village to village while having good services and accommodation facilities. So, very happy that you're thrilled about it, Rosie. So am I.
Thank you very much indeed again for joining us, Savas Peridios, who is our Deputy Minister of Tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.